welcome to the first of the 4 Pillars tabletop wargaming videos. Today we're going to be looking at basic assembly of your models. We're going to be putting together a Tyrannid Genestealer today. The things we're going to be focusing on are, first off, safety. I'm going to be using an X-Acto knife, which is a very sharp, kind of dangerous tool. Secondly, basic cleaning and prepping of the model. And thirdly, actually putting it together. So let's begin. Alright, next we're going to look at the tools we'll be using today. Here we have an X-Acto knife with a fresh blade. These things are incredibly sharp. Be very careful with it. Whenever it's not in your hand, currently in use, make sure you put the cap back on it. Here we have a Games Workshop Citadel mold scraper. This is a very strong metal tool. It has a sharpish edge. It's not sharp enough to cut you, but it's enough to scrape any molding off plastic. Sometimes when the two molds come together, you get a little bit of the plastic leaked and you end up with a bit of a seam, so this will take care of that really easily. If you don't have one of these, you can use your X-Acto knife with no problem. Also, here we have a set of edge clippers. They have a perfectly flat edge on one side. This will help you get your model off of the sprue very easily. It's much easier than using a knife. And for glue today, the model I'm going to be putting together is completely made out of plastic, so I'm just going to be using some Tester's liquid cement. This bonds the plastic. It's a permanent bond, so it might not be the best for some beginners, but I prefer to use this for all plastic models. If you don't have this, super glue is fine. It works just as well on metal and plastic. The model we're going to be putting together today is a Genestealer. This is part of the Tyrannid faction in the Warhammer 40,000 game. The Genestealers come on 2 plastic sprues, one that has arms and hands, and the other that has the body and the legs. Also, we have a plastic base that comes with the Genestealers. Now, this base here has a slot in the middle of it. See right there? Some of the models that GW makes, they have smaller feet or thinner legs. This Genestealer is supposed to be very spindly and dexterous, so his legs are very athletic, but just a very small foot connecting him to the base. So we'll be putting this slot right here into the base, and that'll help him stand up. If your model has bigger or thicker feet, usually they don't end up having those slots. They just go together with no problem. Okay, so first off, we are going to take our main body here, and let's go ahead and do this guy right here. There's 4 Genestealers per sprue. We're only going to be doing one of them today just for time reasons, but you're going to take your edge clippers, just get them nice and flush with the bottom of that the slot, and go ahead and clip those 2 connections right there. And then we've got another one here at the neck, so we will slide over right here. Clip that one as well, and we have our body. We'll set him down, and the main body comes in one more piece. You can see here he's got a right leg, so we're going to go ahead and clip his right leg off as well. Just nip that right there, and then once at the hip as well. Sorry if I go out of focus, first time doing a video like this. Okay, so we'll set our clippers aside. Next, looks like we've got a little bit of flash left over. It's going to be hard to see just because it's so fine, but we got a little bit of flash here and a little bit of flash on the neck left over from the sprue. So we're going to take our X-Acto knife. Now remember, these things are incredibly sharp, so be very careful. We've got a bit of flash right here on the neck. So what I'm going to do is just trim that off with the knife. But what you want to do is never cut into your thumb. Don't use your thumb to cut against, because these knives, they'll go right through you, and nothing gets in the way of hobby knife more than bleeding. So we're going to be cutting past our thumb, not into our thumb. So just set the knife right there, get a good grip on her, just trim those couple little bits off right there, and then it looks like we've got one on the bottom, but this is going to be under the base, so we don't need to worry about that. Set that aside, grab his leg next. His leg has one at the top here. So we will just trim that off real quick. Got that, and then he has one on his shin as well. So we will trim that as well. Okay, now when you're done with your knife, put the cap back on. Hey, the Genestealer also has a little bit of flash on his leg. Again, difficult to see with the camera just because it's so fine, but there's a little line running across the top of his thigh right here. So we're just going to take our scraper tool, run that along that gently. That'll take that line right off. Do the same thing on his shin. No problem. And then he's got a similar line on the back of his thigh, right here. So it's mostly important to get these lines off for when you paint them. If it's just the normal gray plastic, you can't notice it too much, but as soon as you put paint on there, and especially if you put a wash on your model to add depth and shading to it, that line is going to stick out. It'll be immediately noticeable as a brighter line across the top of his leg, which should be smooth. So I'll move over to the main body, take a quick look here. Not much on the leg. The base, a little bit on the top of his foot, so we'll grab that. Okay, well, there's a little bit on the inside of his leg, so just scrape that off real quick. And again, if you don't have one of these specific tools, you can use an X-Acto knife, no problem. It's just this tool has both a flat and a rounded edge, so it's especially good for these Genestealers. Anything organic that has curves that you're going to need to scrape a mold line off of. So if you use an X-Acto knife, it'll just give you a flat plane on top of what should be a rounded surface. So this is why I prefer one of these tools, but again, not necessary. Okay. Blow any dust that's left over on it off. And now we have our Tyranid main body and our right leg. So we're going to glue these together, and we'll let that glue set while we move on to the other parts of the model. So here we're going to take our plastic cement and just put a little dollop right in here. Just a little bit. Throw our cap back on. And then since we have our glue in our hip joint, we're going to go ahead and just press the leg right into that joint. Okay. And this plastic glue, it takes about 24 hours to set completely. What it does is it melts the plastic together, but it becomes tacky enough to just leave the leg. Just hold it for a second, let it get a little bit of grip, and then you can set it aside. It'll cure enough for us to keep working on the model pretty quickly. So we'll just set the body right here. Next, we'll go back to our sprue. We are going to have a couple more bits we need to clip off. One is going to be a head. If you look here, the kit for the Tyranid Genestealers gives you a wide variety of heads. What are we gonna go with today? Let's just grab this basic guy right here. He's sticking his tongue out. So, nip the head off the sprue. Actually, had a little bit more plastic left over than I wanted, so I'll go ahead and clip that off as well. Okay, set the head aside, and then each Genestealer has 4 arms. So first, let's grab one of these right here. This is called a rending claw. The nice thing about these GW kits is they often give you a wide variety of ways to assemble the model. Some of them are just single poses with not very many options, but a kit like these Genestealers here, you have a lot of different things you can do. And then for our second arm, we're going to use what's called a scything talon. It's these big claw-like ones here. The Genestealers also have an option to just have regular hand arms, but we're going to go with these big claws just because they look cooler. Okay, and nip that right off the sprue. There we have a left arm. There we have a right arm, actually. A right arm, and here we have a left arm. Wait, that's a right arm. Okay, and this is a left arm. There we go. Okay, so nip our left arm off. Go ahead and set that down. And just as we did for the Genestealer's main body, going to go through and clean off any flash that we might have. There's a little bit on his claw right here. Clean that up. A little bit on his shoulder joint. Don't cut into your thumb. Okay. Okay, so this arm appears to have a little bit of flash still attached to it. I missed it, so just grab our edge clippers, take that off real quick. With the larger pieces, it's safer to use these clippers than the X-Acto knife. The less force you need to use with the knife, the better. So we'll just trim that off. Okay, and that's it for big flash on the arm. Any large bits, a little bit on the bottom of the head here. So we will slice that off as well. And here we have the left arm. The left arm. A little bit on the shoulder. A little bit on the blade. And then our right arm. A little bit on the shoulder. And again, a little bit on the blade. Okay, so that'll do it for larger pieces of flash. So again, cap off our X-Acto knife. I'm gonna go back to our scraper tool. So the right rending claw arm. Go ahead, clean this off real quick. Depending on the age of the kit and how complex it is, sometimes you'll have models that have a lot of these mold lines on them, and sometimes you won't have any. It just really depends. This Genestealer box, these molds are a little older, so we generally get a little bit of flash on each of the models, or a little bit of mold lining on each of the models. But also, you notice this scraping, you end up with a lot of little bits of scraped off plastic. You can end up with a very dirty workspace very quickly, which is why I generally put a newspaper, or here I have a piece of felt. It's something that you can pick up and shake off into the garbage easily. The floor under your modeling table will probably become pretty messy pretty quickly. Okay, so these guys up. Clean off our work surface here a little bit. Okay, so we have our bits. What I generally like to do is sort them out before I start gluing them, just to make sure I know where everything is going to go. So here we have one left arm, another left arm, and then the two right arms. Also, I tend to position them out how they're going to go on the model. So the scything talons are going to go in his front arm joint, whereas the rending claws are going to go in the back arm joint. So I set them out in that order. It's just one less thing to keep track of. Next, going to go ahead and glue the Genestealer to the base. So again, Genestealers come with a slotted base. He's got a large slot under his feet. It's pretty easy. It's just going to, should pop right in there fairly simply. Yep, it just slides right in. So just do a dry fit, make sure everything's going to go together well. Grab our plastic cement. A little dab on his feet, a little bit on the side. Should keep this in frame here. Just a little bit on the side. Okay, and then we're gonna position him on our base and slide him right in. Okay, cap our plastic cement. Okay, so here's our Genestealer on the base. And we're gonna set him aside, let him dry for just a second. Okay, I wanted to go back and make sure I got the mold lines. Let's look at this one on the bottom of the chin. A lot of these mold lines, if they're someplace where it's not going to be very easy to see it when the model is actually assembled, sometimes you can just leave them as is. It won't be too noticeable, but I tend to be a perfectionist when putting these guys together. So, okay, good. All right, so the Genestealer, he sat there for a second. It should be enough hold for us to be able to model him without any issues. So first, let's go with his two sets of rending claws, the smaller arms. So on this kit, again, same with gluing him to the base, just going to put a dab of liquid cement right here in his arm socket. Grab his right arm, push it in there, hold on to it for just a second, let it get gummy enough so it'll hold on its own, and then you can release. And there we go. Our forearm Genestealer has one of his arms. Next, since we're working on this side, just go ahead and do the right scything talon. Same exact process. A little bit of liquid cement in the joint. Grab his arm. And we'll model this one facing up a little more. So put that right in the joint. Hold it there for a second. If you're using super glue, depending on the type of glue, it might hold instantly for you or it might take forever. Okay, so here we go, his left side's completed. So now onto his right side. The rending claw arm. Get some glue, push that into the slot, into the socket rather. Hold it there for a second, let it dry itself. And that'll be enough to hold on. And then one in the right socket, and the right rending claw, or the right scything talon rather. Again, push into the socket, hold it there for a sec. Now this arm's a little longer and it sticks out a little more, so you might want to give it an extra couple seconds. It's got to work against gravity a bit more than the other arms too. That should be enough. Okay, so now our Genestealer has his arms completely assembled. So next we're going to do the head. Just carefully set this guy down. Don't want to put too much pressure on any of the recently glued joints just because the arm might come off if, if it's not completely cured. Okay, put a dab of the glue bottom of his head. And then these Genestealers are pretty nice. The shape of the neck corresponds with the shape of the head, so it should hold together pretty well. Just set that right on there. Again with the other bits, because this doesn't have to work against gravity at all, so it shouldn't take as long. Just set it on. Okay, give that a second to cure. Tools aside. All right, and there we have it, a completed Tyrannid Genestealer. So he's going to come equipped with a set of scything talons and a set of rending claws. Get lots of extra attacks. These guys in game, they're very sneaky and they hit hard when they charge, but they're referred to as a glass hammer. They can do a lot of damage when they get in, but they have absolutely no staying power. So thanks for watching our first video, everybody. Keep an eye on this channel for a lot more videos to come. We're going to try to cover every aspect of the tabletop wargaming hobby that we possibly can. If you have any questions, comments, or things you'd like to see, you can get a hold of me at this address here. If not, I'll be down at the 4 Pillar shop every Sunday throwing some dice. Thanks.